What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about more of the Melissa Barrera drama. I believe Zach mentioned this on a previous video. Mine said, Alex, I hope you cover it. So I want to just say, let me throw this in very early on. Hey, if there's anything you guys ever want me to do, or if you want me ever do like weird ranking videos or whatever, please, always let me know. Tag me on Twitter, anything like that. And I'm a man of the people. I really do kind of want to make videos that you all want to watch. So you know what? I'll give the guy what he wants, and hopefully you guys find some entertainment in this as well. Now, I gotta be real, if you've watched the other videos I've made on this, I'm a little bit more like non-caring and a little like less aggressive than some people I've seen online. We've talked about, the Twitter mobs, really on both sides. There's two kind of opposing armies on Twitter, with Melissa Barrera, with Scream, with Nev Campbell, with all that stuff that really go after each other. I'm not a part of that, and I hate that stuff. But what we have to talk about is, I don't necessarily even know if I want to call it confusion, because I guess I would be part of the confusion. But there's been more talk, with Melissa kind of on her tour, right? Talking about Abigail, which I'm very excited for. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters because I'm a very big baby, as you guys know, but I do want to see it. Like, I'm going to support that film in some way, okay? But movie's coming out. She's doing her press, all that jazz. And, there's been some things about it. And the most recent thing was this, self-reflection, on Sam and Scream 6. And we got a couple interesting tidbits. Really, I would say two different parts to it. Number one was her talk about how she felt good about the ending. That I don't even think she said if, right? Like, this is it for Sam, at least for like a while. Like, this is it for Sam, right? It could have been a whole lot worse. They could have ended it on a much bigger cliffhanger than they did. And, those were her words, right? Like, she's happy where they ended Sam. She lived that role. I think she did a great job. And they told the story they were going to tell. That was really the first part of the quote. And then she talked about the stuff kind of right after it, right? I want to focus on that just really quickly, just to throw in my 2 cents. I like the way that she handles like that part. I'm going to say I slightly disagree. I got to stick to my guns and what I've been saying for a long time. Look, the ending of Scream 6, I do think is like generally serviceable. Is it a perfect ending for those two characters, Sam and Tara? No, I really don't believe it is. Maybe Tara, but not Sam. And we've gone in back and forth, and I can respect where people are coming from because we've talked about this before. So let me just throw it in again. The fact that she carries out the mask and drops it, I know you can look at that and say, well, in the act of her dropping it, she is literally letting it go. She's literally walking away from the mask. You know what I mean? And I get that. And I think I might have to actually start seeing it that way, right? Because if this is the end of Sam, and if the story in our heads and the story in the lore of Scream is that she moved on and she's okay now, then that is the ending, and her dropping the mask would literally symbolize, hey, I'm moving on. And I can have this darkness within me, but I can be okay. And people have told me that, right? And I respect that. I don't agree with it. I don't agree. I got to, again, stick with my guns. I've always said the fact that after all that, and I mean, she just got done brutally murdering an individual, right? She goes outside and she has the mask. And more importantly than anything, she's still in that trance. You have the music playing. She's staring at it. She's lost. She's lost herself. And Tara, once again, by the way, which I always like that theme in this movie, whenever Sam kind of loses it and just kind of like disappears, right? Almost like daydreams, Tara brings her back. So Tara does that again, right? And I've always said just the simple fact of what they did in the third act, what she did, and then she brings the mask outside, she's still in the trance, indicates to me that darkness is not resolved. Her story is not resolved. Does that make sense? That's where I've always come at it. So I'm happy she thinks about it that way. And again, if this is it, and if that's the lore kind of going forward, hey, if we hear in Scream 7, hey, Sam and Tara are fine, they fled the country, all this stuff, you would assume that, that is the proper ending. She left the mask behind. She left that kind of past behind, that darkness. And again, I can respect that. And I think, again, that's probably the right way of thinking about it, depending on where we're going. But I don't know. I've always just thought you could do more. I think because it was intended to be a trilogy, which we're about to talk about in a second, right? But because it was intended to be a trilogy, you clearly were not done. In fact, the talk, whether it was Melissa, who has kind of talked about it as well, or anybody else, the idea was this was going to be that one last push, right? She was going to have to decide, or, we were going to do it again. There would have been a conclusion to that Billy and Sam kind of story. So just the fact that they, you don't end at 2, you end at 3 in this case, right? I guess I'm reading into it more, right? That you were going to do another one. Therefore, how could her story actually be over when you were always going to do another one after it? So it's clearly not over. So that's where I've always stood. Then she talks about the firing versus non-firing, right? So she basically says, because continuing this conversation, she was locked in for 2 movies, right? She had a contract for 2 films, and basically that was it. Like, they never renewed her contract. Now, the back and forth. And again, maybe a little anticlimactic from my part. I don't really think, okay, I don't want to say I don't really think it matters. I mean, in a sense, I don't really think it matters. Look, I've said it 1,000 times, right? Like, I believe what they did was wrong. All of them, Paramount and Spyglass and all that. But is it true that she literally did not have a contract? Okay, well, when the reports came out, it literally said she was fired. Now, here's the thing. I'm not really in, like, the movie circle. I don't really, I know the lingo because I do so much games and there is, like, similar lingo. I don't know how perfect the Hollywood Reporter is or Variety is. I know they're, like, the top dogs, but can they get a small thing wrong? Here's what interests me. The Jenna Ortega part is actually something, I know I'm like deflecting, but not really, because that part I feel like gives us a little like clarity. The rumor with her is that she was signed for 2 movies, and the ask for her for the 3rd movie was going to be probably upwards, like close to 10 million. Like, she was going to push that like double digit, million marker. And they knew that that would have been a problem with Spyglass and all that. So I believe that. And I don't know if that's the reason, by the way. You know what I mean? I actually do believe that because they sever ties, however they sever ties, with Melissa Barrera, I think that is why. At the end of the day, boiled down, I think that's why Jenna Ortega said not doing it. The timing of when Melissa's story broke to Jenna, the press saying she's not doing it, you just can't write it better than, you know what I mean? So yes, could it have been for contracts? Could have been, this is where I've always stood, by the way. Could have been for money? Yes. Could have been for whatever reason. Could it have been that she literally, there was no way she ever would have made filming? Yeah, it could have been for, but the fact is that Melissa's story broke and then Jenna left, quote unquote, the day after. There's something to that drama and to that, those girls having each other's backs. Or I truly do believe that. However, again, I don't think that eliminates that one specific part of the rumor that she only had a contract for 2 movies, and they were negotiating for the 3rd. So, again, in terms of being anticlimactic, here's what I literally think happened, okay? This is just good old Alex's opinion. Melissa had a contract for 2 movies. They were actively negotiating the 3rd. It was almost a handshake-like agreement or just this assumption, of course, you're going to come back. That is truly what I think happened, okay? I think it's 95% possible she didn't literally have a contract. And I don't think that's crazy. Now, again, like, I'm not in the movie industry. I can't point to too many comparables, but I don't know. Like, there's sports I can kind of draw to. Again, like, gaming's my background. I don't know. But I just truly believe in this kind of ordeal. And it's why I bring up the whole, well, you have those 2 movies, but of course you're going to have the trilogy. Of course you're going to have the 3. And Melissa says that. She said, well, of course they were kind of planning 3 movies to end it, but, I had done 2. So she admits it right there, right? Like, the assumption, I think, from everybody, even though her money situation also probably would have got a little messy, right? Because she started to get bigger. She is doing other things. Sam is the main character, and now she's like a really good main character. So, you have to pay her, right? Now, was she going to get Jenna Ortega money? Heavens no. But she was going to get paid. So, could that have affected it? Maybe. And could that have made the handshake agreement less powerful? Yeah, that's definitely possible. But I truly believe there was just an assumption from Melissa and an assumption from Spyglass and Paramount and Radio and everybody. There's just an assumption that we're obviously making Scream 7, and she's obviously going to be the main character. We already got the writers doing it. Maybe the story's already done, and she's the main character. All of that, I think, was assumed. Did she literally put pen to paper? No, I actually don't think she did. I think what she has said in the past, and even, what we're talking about, and I think what has come out really from their side, I think she literally never signed a contract. Now, can you be fired? Depends on your definition. I think that's literally where people are getting caught up. Oh, she was fired. She wasn't fired. I think she was fired, but not in like a classical sense. She didn't walk into work and they said, hey, you're done, there was an assumption that she'd be in the movie that she starred in the last two, and then they told her, we're done. We're not negotiating. You're done, and we're done. And now, again, was that the right move? No, I think no. But I do believe that is what happened. So would you consider that firing? Ultimately, by the way, does it really matter? I mean, I guess it matters enough for me to make this video on it, right? But I mean, truly, that's where I believe it happened. So I don't know. You can fight all day long if she was fired or terminated or there was never a contract. So how could she have been fired? I do believe she was fired, but again, not in like a classical sense. They didn't tear her contract up in front of her face and say, "See this? That you signed. We're not doing it." I mean, it has been brought up. Like, could she have sued them? Well, if you didn't have a contract, it would be pretty hard to sue them, wouldn't it? So maybe that has something to do with it. I'm sure there's more, and I've always said this since it happened. There is more to the story than I think both sides are saying. I think it's a mix of both sides. I think it's still something is a little bit hidden because there were conflicting stories back in November. Not everything perfectly lines up, and we don't know exactly like the timeline of certain things. There is some wording, right, that kind of conflicts or doesn't make sense. I don't think it's perfect, but I think we have an okay sense of what happened. So that's my thoughts right now. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Again, as always, if you want to see something from me, I'll be here to cover the Scream 7 news, but if there's anything else you want to see, fire away. By the way, I know people ask all the time, and people do, and I genuinely appreciate this. People will say, like, can you cover other horror movies? And I appreciate people wanting me to do it. I'm not into it. And I'm not going to fake it for you guys, right? And I think hopefully you understand that kind of respect. I want to be passionate about the videos that I make. So, maybe an Abigail thing, if I ever see it, I would love to maybe do a review on that. So that's something I would consider. But I've seen people say, like, cover Saw or cover this. I'm not going to do that. And again, that's just a respect thing. I don't want to give you guys content that I'm not actually, like, into. I'm not going to fake engagements or whatever on it, okay? Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all on the next one.